Hello, Phil.
Hey, that countdown.
We did a
What
countdown.
countdown. Fantastic. Well, there's a first time for everything. And
I
in
know,
this
right?
case, having a countdown is a good start to warming things up. But at the same time, it's like we can't talk to each other when the countdown's going. So it's like, what if I had this problem where I really needed to put on some pants,
I would hope you'd wait for more than 30 seconds to do
Then
that.
what if you forget and you're just like,
Oh no, I'm not wearing any pants.
yeah. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Luke Descartes show.
Welcome. I'm
Is
so
it
glad
Luke,
to have
is
you
it
all
Luke
here.
Descartes? Luke
Say again.
Descartes. Is it Luke Descartes? The Luke
Deckard.
Descartes show.
Deckard.
The Luke Descartes show.
Deckard. Yeah.
Anyway.
No. So Phil, how was your week?
Well, look how decked out I am here. I looked at the most Middle Earth things. Oh, I have more Middle Earth stuff, but that's like, see, this is what kind of a nerd I am. I'm like, but that's like Third Age. We're doing Second. Even this is barely Second Age stuff. This is Gondor. This T-shirt that I'm wearing. It's the sigil of Gondor. We have the 7 stars and the 7 stones and 1 white tree, and the crown of the king, which was from the founder of Gondor and Arnor, Elendil, also called Elendil the Tall, and that's the start of that, and the story ends with King Elisar reclaiming this title after hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years, of a kingless state.
Kingless state. Yes, we will get into all of this, and I'm excited to get into it because I know Lord of the Rings okay enough. You know it better than I do.
I know it better, but despite my reputation that some people would probably give to me because I read the audiobook that a lot of people tend to like, that doesn't mean that I read everything. It really doesn't.
True. No.
I tried reading the Silmarillion, didn't get far. Tried the audiobook of the Silmarillion, also didn't get far with that. Unfinished Tales had a bit of, a look through. Children of Húrin, listened to the audiobook with
I read that. I read Children of Húrin.
That's in the first stage. It takes place in the first stage.
Yes.
Of course, as everyone would know. And all the other books. I read a little bit of History of Middle-earth, which was fascinating because it was like a behind-the-scenes for The Lord of the Rings, because it was Christopher Tolkien kind of logging and archiving older drafts of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all the other writings. And you could read some old drafts from Tolkien's. And I always talk about this, but one of the funnest first drafts for Lord of the Rings happens to have, before Strider was created, there was a character called Trotta. And Trotta, because Tolkien started writing The Lord of the Rings as a sequel to The Hobbit, so it had that childish fantasy feel.
You're right.
That it would eventually kind of grow out of. But in one of these first drafts, Frodo and the gang go to Bree, go to the Prancing Pony, and they find this mysterious figure called Trotta. He's known as Trotter. And what happens is that we find out that Trotter is a hobbit. And not only that, but in one deleted bit of information, this hobbit has wooden feet. So he lost his feet. And he's just like, clock, 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 walking around with his wooden feet. You see how whimsical that is, kind of?
That is quite whimsical. That makes, you know what that makes me think? I guarantee you that if that Tolkien probably knew someone who went through the war, First World War, and came out with, lost their legs or something like that, and that's, I bet you that's where he got that idea.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's definitely cases of that where that's happening. I mean, dude went through the war to end all wars.
He went through a lot of stuff. So why didn't you finish, out of curiosity, the Silmarillion?
Because it was dry. And also, I think, okay, so I can't remember the names of all the Inklings, when J.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and
Yes, I know those two.
a handful of other writers came together in the at the Bird and Baby, or the
yes,
Eagle and Child.
Eagle and the Child,
Yeah.
and they called it the Bird and the Baby.
Was that in Oxford?
Yeah.
Okay, and because you were there.
It's in Oxford. I've been there before. Yeah, I've had a pint there.
Yeah, and they would be, they would exchange manuscripts that they were working on, and Tolkien would always bring up this mythology he was making, and one of them just said, "Not another damn elf." So that's kind of how I felt reading the Silmarillion, because it's like there's just too many elves. I can't Fëanor, Finrod, Finwë. There's all these characters that I don't have enough space in my head to remember them all.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is.
It was impressive and it was overwhelming. I remember trying, I've skimmed through portion.
Do you hear that?
What is that?
It's fireworks. Fireworks, Gandalf.
Okay.
Fireworks.
Gandalf, fireworks.
It's perfect. It's the celebration of the Rings of Power.
Yes.
Out now,
Amazon Prime. I remember trying to read the Silmarillion, and I've skimmed through various sections of it, but I've not read it from cover to cover. But at the same time, it is also quite tricky.
Yeah,
it's tricky because like the stuff wasn't really meant to be published. It's not meant to be read like a proper narrative. It is quite dry history, and says more about his personal interest in his character and in his world that he was just that he was building, so it's fun because like I love to read this stuff, and I think I consider it all canon because it's from his pen.
Yeah, I'm just distracted by the sounds of the fireworks. They're so close.
Is there some kind of celebration? Is there like a legit like holiday or something going on?
I have no idea. No, everything was open today. Usually when there's a holiday, there's probably some maniac just putting the fireworks on. Maybe there's an opening of a store or something like that.
It's opening of a store. There's a new Taco Bell, so they got to kick it off with fireworks.
That's what I'm here for. This noise. Anyway, I'll try to cancel it out.
Do what you can.
I am curious. I am so curious to go outside and see how close it is, but at the same time, you got a show to run, right? So
got a show to run. But I'm also mildly curious. I mean, you can have a look if you want. I can talk for a second to the camera. Oh, is it done?
It's probably done.
The excitement is over.
No. There's some more. There's some more. I'll be right back. Okay. So
Phil is gonna go see what the fireworks are for. My assumption is that there's a new Taco Bell opening in Croatia, which would deserve all the celebration that Croatians can muster, which I guess would be a bunch of fireworks. There we go. I don't know. So anyway, my week was good. I spent half of my week in Edinburgh, which is in Scotland, which is north of me because I live down in London, and it was good times. Perfect weather, a lot of Gothic architecture and whiskey. Enjoyed some whiskey from the Johnny Walker store and went on a Johnny Walker whiskey tasting thing, and that was pretty groovy. Yeah, there we go. That's what I did this week, and I thought Phil would be back by now, but he's not. How was your week? I hope it was good. So this week, obviously, Phil's away, but I will say we're going to talk about the Rings of Power and what we thought of it. We both watched it. We watched it together yesterday night while I was still in Edinburgh. And we have a lot of thoughts. Some positive, maybe. Some negative, maybe. But it's a lot. We have a lot to go through. I rewatched both episodes. I've watched them twice now. Well, both episodes 1 and 2 twice. Once, obviously, at the Airbnb. But then I wanted to watch them again on the train on the way back to sort of re-go over my notes and re-go over my thoughts to see if I really thought what I thought yesterday. Turns out I do think what I thought yesterday. But yeah, I think Phil should come back fairly soon so that we can dive into this. But Phil is back.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, it's like right next to me. Right next to me. Unbelievable. I don't even know what this is all about. No idea. Is anybody here anyway?
I don't think so.
Looks like no one's here. This is the first because we've had people show up pretty soon when we started this, and it's funny. You'd think that Lord of the Rings would kind of bring all the people to the
we don't even have a troll in the audience. We don't even have a snow troll in the audience.
Oh man, yeah.
Okay, I think we should just dive in.
All right, so what do you when was the first time you heard about this show? Because it was a long time coming.
I couldn't tell you when I first heard about it. It was a long time ago. When I first heard about the Rings of Power, or whatever this mythical Lord of the Rings show that was going to come out, very long time ago, and
I'll tell you when. 2018.
2018. I was reluctant straight away. Biffer is here, but he's lurking.
Biffer.
We're happy that you're here lurking. Biffer. We enjoy a good lurker.
Biffer.
2018. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I guess we heard about then, but like I don't remember. My initial thought was probably cringe. Was probably like I don't trust it. Was something like that because I don't know. So much stuff in 2018 wasn't looking good. Marvel's gone downhill. DC has never gone up the hill.
DC hasn't even begun climbing.
Star Trek wasn't and isn't in a good place yet. Maybe it will be in the future. I don't know. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on with all this stuff, all this pop culture stuff that Narnia hasn't been good. The Hobbit wasn't great.
Someday we should have like a podcast episode just talking about Narnia.
That would be fun. For all the people
adaptations.
We can do it for all the people who keep commenting on my 5-year-old video about how it's stupid for them to reboot Narnia with the silver chair. 5 years ago, I did this video and I still get comments on it. And I'm like, I don't know why people are commenting on this because it's the guy who did
it's Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson, who did Captain America and stuff like that. He was meant to direct it. And it's like, that's obviously not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So why is it that 5 years later, people are still commenting on this stupid video?
It's been 10 years since Voyage of the Dawn Treader. You know
what's so funny? What's so funny to me is that Disney bought Narnia, screwed Narnia up, sold it to Fox. Fox failed with it. They bought Fox. And now they got all those films again. Now they don't have Narnia anymore because I think Amazon have the rights to it now.
I think it was Netflix.
That's what I meant, Netflix. Biffer says, if I were Amazon, I would drop the whole season at once to silence the trolls. Yeah, sure. I gotta say, it's interesting. We'll talk about this first. It's interesting that Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, is not allowing any reviews for 72 hours in order to combat trolls. And my thinking is that not just going to make the trolls more angry? Are they not just going to sit there and wait for 72 hours and then just flood it?
And amass their numbers and just wait.
The other thing is, and we've seen this with the She-Hulk rhetoric, you have to sort of ask yourself, is it legitimate trolls that are review bombing this, or is it just legitimate fans giving it negative reviews, or is it somewhere in the middle? Like, the negative reviews, is the percentage actually trolls, or is the percentage of trolls small? Like, I that's what I'd want to know.
I couldn't tell you, but I think many times my answer would always be it's somewhere in the middle, just to be safe, because there's definitely this.
It can't be 50-50. It can't be
50-50. It can't be 50-50. There's no way it's going to be 50-50, judging by the fact that I saw it. I witnessed it with my own eyes. You have not seen what I have seen.
I have seen many things.
I have seen both episodes, my friend.
Yes.
And we've seen it. We've actually watched it together.
We did. We did. So I was saying that we were away, that we watched them both yesterday, and then I watched them both on the train this morning on my way back from Edinburgh.
I can't believe you just decided to just watch it again.
Well, I had 4 hours to kill on the train, and I thought, why not go the extra mile, and do a bit of more watching, do a bit more research on this. So it's interesting. I saw some tweets, and obviously there are people out there who don't like it at all, and are saying lots of things about it. But there is a sort of argument that is out there that is, Tolkien would have hated this, right? But then people are saying, yes, but Tolkien would have hated Jackson's trilogy and all that sort of stuff in order to kind of invalidate people saying the show is bad, because they were saying Tolkien would have loved it. So Bifford, you loved the show. That's cool. Hello.
Hey,
buddy.
Wahab's here. Hello,
Good
sir.
to see you, pal. So it's interesting that people say that, because there's an interesting concept in literature that's called the death of the author. And the death of the author is the idea that the story belongs to the people, or the character belongs to the people, therefore the people can do whatever they want with it and kind of interpret it how they want to interpret it. I agree and disagree with this literary theory. I'm more in line with the way Peter Jackson approach the series, and that was not inserting anything into the story that wasn't already in Tolkien's work. Things might have changed around, dialogue might have moved around, some characters might have done different things versus what someone else might have done, things like that. But in terms of the essence and the themes and the morals and the politics, like everything was kept exactly to
and the story, I would say, like there's nothing that's distracting it from going up to a different like trajectory that isn't the story. You could,
Yeah, and I think like an interesting example for me of a show that like completely deviates from the source material but is fantastic because it still retains the essence is the Bourne series. The Bourne trilogy I think is great, but Supremacy and Ultimatum are nothing like the book, like at all. But they still retain an interesting essence, and they still feel like an alternate universe Bourne story, and so therefore I'm okay with it. I'm cool with it. So Wahab says, although I must admit there are some little tiny things in it in terms of certain designs. I think he likes certain design things, but he doesn't like the series. Hello, Valerie. So Valerie's not interested in this version at all, but interested in hearing our thoughts. Well, you're gonna get them.
Well, you're gonna get them.
It's gonna be all that in a bag of chips.
Do you remember that review?
I do. It's Wolverine review, isn't it?
Yeah, the
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
X-Men Origins Wolverine review. It's all that in a bag of chips.
Yep. So it's interesting when people use the argument of like, oh, Tolkien would have hated this, but then people say, oh, but he would have hated it regardless. So therefore, you should just like it. And I'm like, there's a middle ground here, guys. You gotta think about, in terms of the people doing it, like, taking this show and taking this concept, taking this novel, taking his stories and trying to adapt them. It's the way you do it. And Peter Jackson, I think, did it with precision and respect. And, whether Tolkien would have liked it or not, the fans responded in kind to that adaptation.
Fans, I would say, like the general audience.
Yes, of course.
Go watch it and fall in love with it. In essence, like I was one of those, because like I remember when I first watched, my first exposure to Tolkien was the Ralph Bakshi animated movie, and I had no idea what was going on. Literally no idea. I was confused by the end. Had like no clue. I just watched it. I was like, well, that was something. And I let it go. And then a year or two later, Fellowship of the Ring came out, and I watched it, and I was enthralled because I had I literally went in blind. I didn't literally go in blind. I figuratively went in blind because I just had no other impression of it otherwise. So there's something about that to say.
I mean, my first experience with Lord of the Rings was the film. I saw the Fellowship of the Ring in cinemas the week it came out. That was my first go. Immediately left the cinema, went and bought the trilogy, and then read it all the way through.
Dude, that's
And
dedication.
loved it.
I didn't do that.
Yeah, no, I did. I loved it. I needed to know. I needed to know the story. I needed to know what happened. I didn't want to wait for the films. That's kind of what made me fall in love with that world. So yeah, so Rings of Power. So it finally released, right? And man, I tell you what, this prologue. We need to start with the prologue.
I tell you what. I
tell you what. What I will say, generally speaking, in terms of the positives, because the positives are there are a couple, but
they're easier to explain. They take less time to explain than the negative sides.
Yeah, I mean, we can go. Yeah, there'll be things along the way. I think in terms of this, if I divorce this from being a Lord of the Rings show, and I just think about it as a fantasy show, I think the graphics and the style of it look relatively good. There are a few bits where the picture quality is so clear and so good that the makeup is obviously makeup. And the picture quality is so clear that you can actually see the powder makeup on their faces.
It's true. It's true.
So it's
I noticed that.
It's super clear, which is nice, but the drawback is that you can actually see makeup lines and prosthetic lines and things like that. And the ears and things like that don't look super great. But in terms of the world and the visuals of like being out in the wilderness and whatnot, I never felt like the sets felt necessarily like sets, except for maybe the cabin, which was just too big. Bronwyn's cabin, her cabin is just huge.
They needed to build a cabin for that steady cam and crane to.
Yes, yeah. So I think those are some of the positives. I think there are some good visuals, there are some bad visuals, but it is yeah. I think the main thing is that it's so crystal clear that you can see the prosthetics, and that makes it awkward. But I mean, Wahab says he loved Khazad-dûm. I mean, I can't say I didn't. It looked fine.
Yeah, I just as a neutral viewer and not putting into account the Middle Earth of it all. There was nothing particularly offensive.
No. Visually, I don't think there was anything that I would be like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. I can't believe they did it. I think the only thing visually that I don't like is I really don't like any of the costumes. I think most of them are
they're a bit
goofy.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite like that. But this prologue was interesting because it mirrors the Lord of the Rings. It mirrors the Fellowship of the Ring, the opening of the Fellowship, where the Fellowship has that big, I think the prologue to the Fellowship is only like 8 minutes. I think
it's 12, but yeah.
Maybe it's 12. This prologue, before we get to the credits, I wrote it down here. It's 17 minutes before the credits, before the opening titles are shown.
Right.
And that's a long time.
And what is this prologue? Because I'm expecting, the world has changed. I feel it in the water. I smell it in the air.
I think that was the thing. I have several pages of notes just on the prologue.
Let's go.
Here's where the prologue started to lose me, and it felt very unfocused because I don't know what they were trying to do. Now, I want to compare this to the prologue of the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, because that is so concise and so perfect. So this prologue for the Rings of Power begins with Galadriel as a child building a toy boat. There's these bully elves who destroy it. She has a conversation with her brother, and then she walks up. Then he walks up the hill. We see the elf city. We see the two trees. Then suddenly she's talking about Morgoth. Then suddenly she's talking about the fight against Morgoth. Then she's talking about Sauron. Then she's talking about her brother being dead. Then she's talking about avenging her brother. Then she's talking about going after Sauron to avenge the death of her brother because he killed her, and then the end climax of this thing is this standoff between her and one of her company, who don't want to go on this quest any longer, to hunt down Sauron, even though she's like, he's out there. And so you're just sort of like, what am I meant to be taking away from this prologue? Because the prologue for a book or for a show or anything is really meant to just set the scene and set the tone of the show or book. And when you compare it to the Fellowship of the Ring, it's so clear. It's, last alliance of elves and men. Sauron they defeat Sauron. They try and destroy the ring. Isildur takes the ring, corrupts him, slips away, falls into history, and then gets forgotten. And now evil is beginning to lurk and rise up again.
Gollum finds it. It gets lost again.
Yeah,
and it's found by Bilbo. But what's great about I think the prologue in Fellowship of the Ring is one of the greatest pieces of like adaptation. A work of art, because it's so concise.
Yes.
And what they did is they stripped it down, funneled everything into just the journey of the ring, because that's the most important part. That's the thing people have to know about. And it follows that, every important character that you need to know before going in, you understand and know in a few sentences.
Yes.
It was found by the creature Gollum, who took it deep into the misty mountains, and there it consumed him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So good.
Yeah, it is. It's a masterclass in just concise writing. It perfectly does it in 12 minutes. It gives you all of the history that you need of leading up to, the olden days, through The Hobbit to where we are now, in just such a perfect way, and hits all the key players. Whereas I found this prologue to be quite muddied, because I was trying to, first we have this moment with Finrod and Galadriel, and they're sitting on the rock or the tree stump, and you kind of have this J.J. Abrams mystery box moment where she's, well, how do I know what's the light and what's the dark and what's up and what's down and what's round and round and round the merry-go-round? And
what's the rock? Remember, what is the rock for? Because it's pointed downward. Why does the boat sail? Because it's pointed upwards.
Yeah, and so then then he like really leans in and whispers something, and the audience doesn't get to hear it, and it's in typical fashion, typical J.J. Abrams sort of mystery box fashion, they drop this hint, they drop this thing, and you're like, are you meant to care? Because that piece of information gets completely lost in the muddiness of this prologue, and then when it comes back at the end, you're kind of like, oh, I forgot about that conversation, and now you're bringing it back like it's super important. And the thing he says, like, which we'll talk about a little bit later, doesn't really make sense. It doesn't have any bearing on the moment in which they re-bring that piece of dialogue back up, which I found very, very confusing. The other thing with the prologue is you have these bullies. You have these elf bullies, and they're throwing the rocks. And I'm kind of like, well, again, what's the impact of this on the story? What does this teach us about Galadriel, about these elves, about elf society? Nothing. Teaches us nothing. It has no bearing on the plot. If you cut that scene out, if you cut the bullies out, then it doesn't change anything. In fact, if you cut the whole prologue, the whole thing out of even up to her conversation with her brother, if you cut that, it doesn't have any bearing on the actual story, because the only thing in the prologue that is important is her brother was killed by Sauron and she wants to go avenge him.
That's pretty much it. That's the kind of focus that they put into the story that they're trying to do.
Yeah. And they spent 17 minutes going around and around and around saying the exact same thing. And you're just sort of like, why? I mean, even the information about Morgoth and a glimpse of that war was pointless.
It didn't.
It was a fun scene. It was fun to see that moment-ish, but it was sort of like, what does that bring to the plot of this episode? How does that scene influence what's happening now? And the excuse that one would have is that, oh well, throughout the thing they're talking about how it's been hundreds of years since, and people are just sort of kind of the war is finally over and all that kind of stuff, and that's why they're showing that. Well, fine to an extent, but they brush over that so much because they focus so much on Galadriel and this revenge
the revenge
that you don't really get what's going on in the wider world.
And then they attempt to do that with all the other characters.
Yes.
And then it was such a, I couldn't believe it. But okay, so anybody who's watching who knows about my history with watching the Hobbit films, watching the Hobbit films to me was just, it was excitement, but it was a so bad it's good kind of excitement, Yes. So for me it was always, this is hilarious. They're going nuts with this movie. This is nuts, Yeah. And that's how it's been for all three films. That's my experience with the Hobbits. Yep. And so going into this, and there was a lot of hype for it too. I remember just being invested in it, even if it was, even if I didn't like it, kind of like making fun of it and quote unquote hate watching it in a way. It's not that I mean, I did hate watching it. Was an event at the time. But then going into this, I was fully thinking, it's been what, close to 10 years without any Lord of the Rings kind of Middle Earth story, put into a live action setting.
Yeah.
And it comes out and I'm ready to watch this because I've had thoughts about this show and how you can make this show.
Yeah.
Since 2019, I actually had what if it's this, because the Second Age, the whole thing that Tolkien wrote, there are bits and pieces of storylines, but there is no Lord of the Rings detailed story, because there's just events happening throughout 1,000, 2,000 years, and it's generational because it's taking it's in this huge scope, you know what I mean? And I thought then they have a chance to make an anthology kind of situation. They could make, they can show all the events that are happening, and the elves who are immortal, they could be the permanent characters in that, because most of the main ones that we know, particularly Galadriel and Celeborn and Gil-Galad and Elrond and Círdan, the shipwright, who isn't even in this show, and Celebrimbor, who's a big central figure, they could be the ones that we could focus on more, and we'll see the development of this age that happens, and of course Sauron is the permanent bad guy, So I thought this is like an epic canvas that you can play with, and it's going to be totally different from Lord of the Rings, the movies, so that you get this disconnect, you can make your own thing. And I was thinking about this for a couple of years while they were making this, and then here we are. Yesterday we watched it, and after maybe 20 to 30 minutes, I was just I'm bored. Yeah. I'm incredibly bored. Yeah. And I couldn't believe I was going to say that. I thought it was going to be at least, I was hoping for Hobbit level shenanigans. But...
Yeah. So bad it's good, so bad you can keep watching it and get sort of worked up over just how silly it is. Yeah. I was the same. And it's interesting because, again, I'm still stuck on this prologue, and you have the death of Finrod. And why do we care?
Because he said that pep talk to her at the beginning.
Why do we care? He's not a character. They had one little moment, and then he's dead. And again, why do we care? I wouldn't call, he's not a character. She's barely a character at that moment. We haven't really, there hasn't been a deep, an emotionally deep enough scene to make us really invest in them in that moment, right? I don't know. I'm gonna use the example of Smallville again.
Let's do it.
Because it's great. In Smallville, when Clark sees Lana for the first time in the opening episode, right? And he's trying to walk up to her, first episode, and he falls over because of the kryptonite, and they have this little, moment where you can just, through the acting, through face and subtext, you get it. You're like, he loves her. She's wearing a kryptonite ring or a kryptonite necklace,
Right.
So you get it. And then you also see one of his other friends, Chloe, who's like rolling her eyes because she knows that Clark is hopelessly in love with Lana, and she clearly has a little bit of a twinkle in her eye for Clark, right? So they set all this up through facial expressions and body language, and you get what's going on, right? Very quickly, and you're sold on it. But there was nothing selling me about their relationship as brother and sister because the dialogue was just so generic and sort of empty platitudes. It reminded me of Wonder Woman, which is just full of empty platitudes. Where there is love, there is light. Where there is light, there is love. Where there is strength, there is courage. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, Kal-El, no. And so that was really frustrating me.
But you're talking about the first Wonder Woman?
Pardon? No, the
Are you
second
talking
one.
about the first one?
No, the second one.
Okay, because the first one's great. I like.
Yeah, the first one. I enjoy the first Wonder Woman. I'm talking about Wonder Woman 2, 1984.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so the whole thing, just the prologue was really fell flat for me. It was totally lackluster. The other problem for me with this show is it's pretending like we don't know about Sauron. It's pretending like we haven't seen The Hobbit, like we haven't seen Lord of the Rings, and we haven't read the books. Like, we know that he is the big baddie, and we know that he gets destroyed in the end of the Return of the King. So why are we even wasting time with this stupid story of his potential reemergence and people not believing Galadriel that he's coming back?
And that's the entire 2 episodes.
It is the entire 2 episodes.
That's all it is. It's Galadriel going, he's out there, and everyone's like, nah, it's okay. Nah,
But
it's fine.
But the thing is, the thing also was interesting to me is, as I was thinking about it more today, I was like, you know what? Everything that we're seeing in this show, we've seen it before. And we saw it in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's all in The Hobbit. It's all in the additional scenes that are in The Hobbit. The rise of Sauron, the dealing with the ghost, the apparition, dealing with
there is no Sauron.
Yep. The nature that is being corrupted.
Yeah.
Radagast the Brown having to cure the little hedgehog. That scene there's a replica scene of that in this show with this cow, where they squirt out the goo, the black goo.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, there are many things in this show that I'm like, you know what? This would be maybe a tiny bit interesting if The Hobbit didn't exist, and this extra stuff wasn't incorporated in it, because now we've seen all this stuff. So you're still not giving us anything original. The only original that you're giving us are some new characters that you've invented. But we will get onto those in a bit.
Yeah. No, it's I mean,
and then the last thing with this thank you, Amelia. The last thing with this this prologue that was bizarre to me is that you have this standoff between Galadriel and Thondir, however he pronounces his name, right? The guy who was like, that's his name. The guy who's like, we should quit this quest to find Sauron, right? And she's like, no, we have to keep going. We will keep going. And then eventually they like all lay down their swords. And the only scene we have with them, right, is climbing an ice mountain for half a second. And then him just saying, we should stop and go back, and then laying their swords down. And then we don't see him again until towards the end of the episode when they're off to the Undying Lands. And it's like, hang on. You cannot tell me that this guy is a character. He's nothing. I only know his name because I hovered over the Amazon Prime thing and it told me his name. But it's like, he's not a character. He's not a person. He's simply just this thwarting presence who's stopping Galadriel from her mission for some reason. But like,
you've done it too much, and people.
Yes, everything. It would annoy me. It's like, you could have spent half of the prologue could have been about just, if you want to go with this revenge plot, fine. I'm not keen on it, but fine. You want to go for it. do it, but have like the first 20 minutes like be about these two characters. And maybe her sort of obsession.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that by the time we get to that bit, you know, we're like, okay, we understand why he's fed up and why he wants to quit and why she's not wanting to quit. You could have done that, and we could have done that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But you're just, the thing is, this prologue throws so many people at you, so many. This whole series throws so many characters at you. It is impossible to. Everything is just completely surface. Nothing goes beyond skin deep because it's just. There's too many people and there's not enough time spent on anything. And I think the prologue really sets up the tone in that respect, in that you're not going to go beyond surface level with anyone because there's not enough time, because there are too many people and the story is too thin.
It's too thin to warrant all the cast that we have, you know. There's like not enough. And I felt that a lot with all of the other storylines that were introduced.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to get to all those bit by bit. But the last thing I want to say about the prologue is the troll fight, right? Like, it's so funny to me that think about the troll fight in the Fellowship of the Ring, right? The cave troll comes in. You have 9 people. That includes a wizard and an elf. And very skilled dudes in Aragorn and Boromir.
Captain
fighting,
of Gondor. Yeah.
They are fighting their asses off trying to kill this thing because it is a force of terror and destruction.
Yeah. It's massive. It's like
they are
put together.
Yes. It's insane. The struggle is so intense for them, and they're barely able to do it. But then this ice troll comes out of nowhere. The other elves seem helpless and unable to do it. But then in this sort of, fluid crouching tiger hidden dragon moment, Galadriel just comes in and just slips past him like butter and cuts him and slices him and stabs him in the head and kills him. And it's like, so she just single-handedly took down this troll. There was no teamwork involved. There was
they were all standing like idiots in the background. Yeah.
No indication of how she's a great captain, a great commander, great leader. It's just she just has to rock up and do everything herself. And I'm like,
sounds like a great
and like I get it like on a visual sense that like, oh, this will be a really cool scene. It'll show how badass she is, but it doesn't. What I want to see in my protagonists is I want to see them struggle. I don't really care when they're being a badass. Being a badass is not that much fun, but seeing your protagonist work and struggle to achieve something is far more interesting because it allows you to understand them as people. You were able to see how they react to struggle, right? So the other elves who were with her didn't react. They were all useless. So it's like, well, these guys can't be good warriors. And then she just comes in and she's super awesome. And you're like, well, why does she even have these other guys then? Because she's super awesome. So the prologue just was, and then that's the end of the prologue. And you're like, wait a minute. What did I just watch? What is this? 17 minutes is just a few minutes shy of your standard 21-minute sitcom. And I'm like, there was no coherent story. There was no plot development.
We just know 3 or 4 things, and it took 17 minutes to tell it.
Exactly, and it was bizarre. So, and then you go right in. You go right from that to more pointless characters.
What happens after that? That's the question. I forgot.
They then move to the Shire, not Shire, and you have those 2 guys with the antlers on their back.
Stupid antlers.
And they exist for one purpose and one purpose alone in this show. For the trailer. Sorry, 2 purposes then. For the trailer shot and to say the word Harfoot.
Oi, the Harfoots are over there somewhere.
Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Then the hunters are gone and we never see them again. And you're like, hang on. Say again.
I hope we never see them again.
Well, but the point is, why even have them?
This is I think this is the Rings of Power so far in a nutshell.
Why?
I think this is it in a nutshell because we have they're like trying to tell a story with so much material and they can only get like these people are invented just for like an exposition.
Yes.
A little exposition.
Yes.
And that's kind of how this entire like the show was structured. That's how I felt.
Yes. Yeah. And because then you think about when we get into the Shire, you have
It's not the Shire, but
it's not the Shire, but we're gonna call it the Shire because let's be real, it's gonna be the Shire, or they're gonna land in the place that's the Shire eventually. But
yes, that's the
whatever.
whole point. It's supposed to be they're supposed to be travelers who run wandering until they find their home. And that's
I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't believe that Lenny Henry's character is called Sadok Burrows.
I don't know why I'm laughing because I have no idea. Like honestly, I'm not familiar with Lenny Henry to begin with.
Yeah, that's it.
It's in Ravanian. Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
Do we have highlighted comments, Luke?
We can. I've been talking too much to be able to do that.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering. There you go. Where is Celeborn? Tell me, where is Gandalf? For a much desire to speak with him.
Where is he indeed? Where is he indeed? With him. I mean, who knows? The rumors that I hear are that he's dead and that he will come back in some other way in the future. Who cares? I mean, I care, but it's like, yeah. Who cares? In that, like, this isn't really the Lord of the Rings lore. This is a.
Yeah, I think there's a whole reason why I'm not even, protesting over every change because it's like let's just keep going. Let's see this thing on its own terms, on its own basis.
Yeah, so then we get to the Harfoots. And I hate them. I hate them all. Like I do. Their accents are terrible. The accents sound like community theater accents.
Community theater. Have you ever?
Or it's either community theater or it's like meant to be parody. The way they speak. There's a character. There's Sadok who the way he speaks just sounds like it's meant to be funny. There's his friend or wife or someone Mavala, whatever her name is, begins with an M. Like her. Yeah, like her name, the way she speaks just sounds like it's meant to be a comedy. And I'm like, what? It's almost like you should be watching Monty Python.
I didn't think of that, but now this makes so much more sense.
Yeah, because it's like you listen to the accents in the Hobbit or in the Lord of the Rings, and they're good accents. You don't sit there and listen to those accents and kind of cringe or roll your eyes or anything like that. It feels like this is a legit accent and it's good. But with these, I'm just like, it was so painfully cringy to me to listen to them speak. And even just the names. I mean, you have Nori and Poppy, and it's like, this is Merry and Pippin.
Oh geez. Right? Oh gosh. Oh geez. Oh gosh.
The level of creativity that went into these names. I'm like, no, these are Lord of the Rings parody names. These are not Tolkien-esque names, in my opinion. I found the names annoying, but I also found the characters really annoying. I found Nori just
Nori's
empty.
Not that. Yeah, she's empty for sure, but like,
yeah. But her friend is empty, and so I'm like, well, like, what did we learn? Similar to like Galadriel and her opening scene as a kid, what did we learn about these hobbits, these Harfoots, these proto-hobbits?
That's the point, right? I don't have anything to say because I don't know. Where is this going? That's kind of what I've been saying when we were watching it. I was just like, where is this going?
Yeah.
What are we leading into here? What's happening? Who are they?
I mean, we understand that, yes, they eat a lot. That's the gag. They go and they eat all the berries. And that's it. Great. Fantastic. But the other thing that's interesting about that first scene with Nori and Poppy is there's this scene where someone's like, "Oh, what's this?" And it's a wolf print in the ground, right? Do you remember, Phil?
I do remember that.
Yeah. So there's this wolf print in the ground, and then Nori and Poppy are like, "Oh my god, we gotta get out of here," and so they leave. And so they leave, and then we see this wolf. We see the wolf twice in the background.
We do, yes.
But
I do remember this.
But at what point? At what point does that wolf become a danger to those hobbits?
They're pretty casual about it, that's for sure.
Like, at no point are they chased by the wolf. Are they threatened by the wolf? Are they followed by the wolf? Nothing. And I was like, hold on. Like, why even introduce this threat, this potential threat, and then do nothing with it?
Well, we'll have to find out in the next episodes, Luke.
Well, no, dude, it's been 2 episodes and they're about to move on. So it's like, you've now lost the opportunity to pay that off. Everyone knows, Chekhov's gun. You have to pay it off. And they have now lost the opportunity to pay it off because we've now moved so far beyond that moment that we don't care.
No, dude, I am just flabbergasted at this. Because yet another scene where it doesn't pay off and there's no importance to it whatsoever, except that it's there and it's just taking up time.
Yes.
They could have just put the wolf. If you're gonna have an episode with the wolves, go make your wolf episode. You know what I mean? Like, who's gonna remember this? What did I learn? I did learn that there are some wolves, but you could have easily said that in passing.
Yeah.
Don't go out there. There's wolves. And there we go. We got it.
Yeah. Like you could have paid off those hunters. Those hunters could have caught the wolf before it caught the hobbits.
I know.
Like, that's your setup and that's your payoff. They don't do it.
This is basic storytelling that we're talking about, man.
Yeah. And this is why I'm going through the episode bit by bit, because I'm like, if someone handed me this script and said, read the script and give me notes, these are all the notes I would be saying. Because I'm like, this is where the story is very weak and not making sense. So Wahab says the wolf warg was an awful design.
He did. He showed it to me, and I was just like, okay, yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Oh no, Wahab! I if you come back every week, Wahab, maybe.
Man.
We would. I mean, we're only doing 1 show a week, and we have a bunch of other cool ideas going on that we're going to be doing. So we wouldn't be able to do a Lord of the Rings show every week unless we did a specific Lord of the Rings show.
Unless we did, but dude, I'm gonna spoil it right now. At the end of these 2 episodes, I was done. I wasn't interested.
I felt done.
Later.
Yeah, but we can't go there just yet, even though we've told people that.
Sorry, I just had to because
I do think we'll be back. I think we won't do an episode breakdown every week, but I think we will do like episodes discussions. We will come back when there's a few more episodes and do like the next 3 episodes and talk about them. Because I do have other people who want to come and chat about Rings of Power with us.
That's great.
So I think we will do that, but we won't do it weekly.
I can get more Tolkien on it too, honestly.
Say again?
I can get more Tolkien on it. I can talk about a little more of the...
Yes.
This is what happened versus the elves, man. You don't get it. Celebrimbor, look at him. He's so passionate. It's so cool. He's ready to make something that will be almost as good as the Silmarils.
Right.
And he's going to be telling him, it's like, that's what I'll be talking about. So anyway, let's...
And so then, because then you have this then you move to another scene, and it's Galadriel and Elrond, and they're chatting in whatever city they're in at this moment, Lindel or something, whatever.
Lindon is the western.
Yes, I think that's where they are in this scene. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's where they are in this scene. And again, all this scene does is reiterate her saying, Sauron is back, we need to do something, and Elrond saying no. And that's it. And then for some reason, like, hang on, before I get on to that, actually, what annoys me the most about that scene is that it really cements the fact that the woman playing Galadriel has absolutely zero charisma. Like, she is the lead of this show. She's meant to be the lead. She's meant to be the number one person. She's front and center, and she's boring as poo, right? Like, she's so boring, and it's not just her that's boring. It's everyone is boring. Everyone is flat.
And it's interesting that you would say that, because in Lord of the Rings, many times I remember people saying that the elves are boring and stuck up, and and they're that way. But yeah, this is on a different level, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm a little stumped with this though, but I'm trying to think of like what made the elves in Lord of the Rings listenable, and what made boring as fudge. But what made these boring? That's the question.
Dialogue and acting.
Yeah, I guess so. I keep
forgetting.
Dialogue
Terrible dialogue. I mean, at one point in one of the episodes, Galadriel says, she needs to know the last known location. And I'm like, that's the kind of dialogue you'd put in a crime novel. You wouldn't put that in your Middle Earth saga.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to know his last known location. DCI Galadriel said.
And
like,
Hans.
It's just, it was sad. It was sad. And again, like, because then we move back. Then it moves back to the Harfoots, and again, nothing is happening plot wise. We're just moving and seeing scenes with these characters, and this scene is between Nori and her mother, and these are just lines for the trailer, and that's why it's so frustrating, because we've seen these lines in context, they're not any better. In fact, they're probably worse, because she says, Nori's like, haven't you ever wondered what else is out there? And again, it's like this scene is just recovering what we already know about the hobbits. We know that they are isolationists and things like that. And this is all just superficial stuff. You're not teaching us.
We get it. We get the point. We understand. Yes.
Yeah. Like, you're not getting anything new about this version of the hobbits or this proto-hobbit. Nothing new about them. Like, maybe this version were more adventurous, and that's why they're travelers. That's why they're nomadic, right? And then from that, a section breaks off. I don't know. If you want to do something with this, lean into it. But if you're just going to make them exactly like the hobbits, other than it's just that the fact that they're wanderers, what's the point?
Especially in the scenes that they're in.
Exactly, especially in the scene that they're in. And then we get to this next bit that is just, it's so frustrating. And it's the bit where they bring all the elves together, and they're like, "You guys are super warriors.
Oh yeah,
super cool. So we're gonna send you home. Hooray!"
Especially Galadriel, because she's been causing trouble, and we don't believe her.
Right. And what annoyed me about that scene is when the Elf King is talking, he's like, "The days of war are over. The days of peace begin." And I'm like, we've already heard this in The Return of the King.
We did.
Like, those lines meant something in Return of the King. After those 3 films, after everything we've seen, those lines meant something, because the big bad evil was finally gone, right? Like, there was real oomph behind Gandalf. I think it was Gandalf who said,
"The days of the king."
Yeah, like, there was real oomph behind that, and we already know what's to come. So
that's the other thing. It's like everybody knows. We know Sauron is coming. He's gonna be here. He'll be here. It's what? It's freaking called Lord of the Rings.
My question is, like, why dick with the viewers like this? because
and again, it's wasting time again in the show.
Yes, because we know what's coming. We know where this is going to go. So why waste our time with this? Like again, this is why you were saying earlier, like do these kind of ensemble things, or each season, move through the ages, because at least we could explore characters that we've never seen before. Here, we're stuck with characters who we already kind of know dealing with a threat who we know very well and we know how it's defeated. And so it's like
having this mystery about it is just like there's no mystery about it.
There is no mystery. It's the Limpus mystery.
Sauron's gonna, it's like,
Like, we know it's him. And at this point, we're 30 minutes into this episode, and I'm like, nothing has happened. Plot-wise, nothing has happened. There have been scenes and some dialogue, but in terms of plot progression, the only thing that's progressed is, I guess Galadriel has to go to the Undying Lands because she's super badass. But in terms of the plot of Sauron, just delayed, just postponed while we're waiting around for someone to finally believe her. 30 minutes out of a 60-minute episode. Awesome. And I hate. Go on.
Yeah, you can put on.
Okay, here we go.
We can have a little full screen, whatever I'm doing here.
Wahab says I'm already writing a game script for The Hobbit. Just a hobby.
Just a Hobbit.
Just a Hobbit. Just a Hobbit. That sounds cool. Wahab also says, I wish the series was as dark as the source material would have. It would have been awesome, and more gore. Well, this is interesting because this show was meant to be Amazon's Game of Thrones, and I got to be honest, like, forget Rings of Power, and go watch House of the Dragon. I am not a Game of Thrones fan. I didn't like Game of Thrones. I didn't get into it. I know people did, and that's fine. It just didn't click with me. But I tell you what, I love House of the Dragon so far. Go watch that, because from the first episode, you're invested. You know what's going on. You know what the motivations are. It's intriguing, and there's crazy crap coming, and it's great. Like,
and you know that something's happening, right?
Yes, you know that something's happening. You know there's manipulations happening. You know there's different opposing motivations and schemes, and it's terrific. Like, the first 2 episodes of that are great. Absolutely loved it. And someone else said online in a review or something like that said that, like, this Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power puts House of the Dragon to shame, and it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
Said that. Why? Like, how?
It's because these two have to compete now.
We're like 40 minutes in Rings of Power at this point, and we just know the same 2 things that we've always known.
Yep. If we did a script by script comparison about the amount of progress plot wise that happened in the first episode of Rings of Power and what happened in House of the Dragon, so much more character development is happening in the Rings of in House of the Dragon. It's night and day.
Maybe I should just watch it just to see that comparison.
You should. I legit think I really like it. It's very, very good. And then you have this really stupid line from Galadriel where she's like, "Well, without my sword, who am I?"
I saw this great meme someone made, like a little picture.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Without my sword, who am I to be?" And then the next one is Cate Blanchett. It's like, yeah.
What's the thing? Like, if you compare this actress to Cate Blanchett, like,
you can't.
This version of Galadriel, this actor playing Galadriel is, she's so wooden. She delivers every line with the same tone, no matter what, and she doesn't move her face. Her face never. There's no movement to her face. If she's mad, she's like, I am mad and I think Sauron is out there, or I am happy.
She's constantly
she's constantly on some chill pills.
That's what it is. Yeah, pretty much.
And yeah, what Hobbs says, I can't tell what Phil is doing. It's somewhere in that place, capital of Numenor. There we go. Yes. and people chatting.
Oh, okay, okay, I'll do it. I'll take that. I was supposed to be the Fellowship, of the Ring, kind of stopping somewhere and just.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. I got it. I get you. Yeah, so it's like one of the things like hated that. And then okay, so we're 30 minutes in. We now smash cut to more new character introductions.
Here we go.
And we get introduced to Arindir and Bronwyn. And Arindir is the new elf dude, and Bronwyn is the lady that they kind of have a budding flirtatious relationship with, or something like that. And there's no connective tissue between any of these scenes, and I think that's what's irking me. Is we're just smash cutting to hobbits doing some stuff, Galadriel doing some stuff, Elrond doing some stuff, Arindir doing some stuff, Bronwyn doing some stuff, and you're like, whoa, like calm down, show. Like, you are throwing, again, as I've said earlier, like, you're throwing so many people at us that it's hard to invest in anyone or anything that's going on.
It's true. It's true. He's not lying.
And
here we go. Another story. Let's introduce this other part of the story, Luke.
Well, because then they when Arindir is in the pub or whatever it is, he's in that little, I think it's a pub, and he's asking questions and stuff.
Filthy.
Say again.
Everyone is filthy.
Yes, they're very filthy. It's some sort of, I don't know what kingdom it is. I don't know what kingdom without a king it is, but it's a kingdom without a king. And right off the bat, you get someone who is being racist towards the elf and calling him knife ears.
Knife ears. Aye, knife ears.
And the thing is, that moment felt so like, we don't serve your kind. Like,
they're droids. We don't serve
droids in here. Like, it felt very much like a George Lucas attempt at social commentary. And after that one moment, it's pretty much gone. There's one more moment where someone raises an eye at Bronwyn and Arindir having a conversation. But like, other than that, like, it's like, why even do that? Like, why does, to some degree, like, why even have racism in this franchise? Why even attempt it? Just move on. We don't need it. It doesn't need to be done. Like, if you're not going to like really do something powerful with it, and then don't do it. Don't do it half-assed.
But maybe they're setting it up for later.
I mean, the thing is, if they are, fine. But like, this first episode barely touches upon it, and then it never comes back in the rest of the first episode, or all in the second episode. And you're just sort of like, why half-ass something, right? Like, it was lame to me. But then again, the other problem that I had with this was the comment of, oh, well, you elves are occupying our lands and you're controlling us like you're freaking fascists. And then he's like, well, one day our true king will return and he will pull us out from under your authority. And you're just sort of like,
authority.
Yes. And you're like, wait a minute, like, you're trying to say now, you're trying to give us another thing that we've already seen, and that is the return of a king.
Oh, I didn't even think about this.
How can you not think about that, Philip?
Think about that. Oh,
because Galadriel says it again to the other guy that she meets on the boat, where she's like, "What kingdom are you from?" And he's like, "Oh, a kingdom without no king." And she's like, "Oh, well, maybe that king should return." And you're like, "Oh God."
I didn't.
Oh God.
I really didn't think about that.
Yeah. So there's some, I don't know which kingdom they're talking about. Someone out there probably does, and I don't. But it's like, okay, we've seen, again, we get this rise of Sauron, we get this poisoned animals, we get the poisoned leaves and bushes and trees, and now we get this return of the king motif and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you are giving us everything that we have already seen and read in Lord of the Rings. And I understand that there were other fallen kingdoms and other kings who have to return, all that kind of stuff in Lord of the Rings lore and history. Fine. But like, you are doing this with characters who we've already seen go through this stuff.
I'm baffled. This is a very baffling set of decisions there.
We already know that Isildur and his family are in this. We already know this show is basically leading up to that big battle in which Isildur takes the ring.
Sure, yeah.
Right? We know that that's the ultimate goal of this thing. So the end of Isildur is when things really break apart, and then it's this long wait for the return of the king. Right? So we're already at this point. So you are now going to what? Introduce some other kingdom who needs a king to be returned at the same time that Gondor will lose its king because of the ring. And like, how many returning and losing kings are we going to go through in this show?
It's now that you mention it this way, it is a little bit. I'm so exhausted. We didn't even hit episode 2. Come on.
We're not even episode 2. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is like anyone. I wonder. I am no Tolkien expert. I'll tell you that. But it makes me wonder if like what's the Shippy guy's name? Tom Shippey.
Tom Shippey.
The Tolkien expert who was on the films and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
it makes me wonder if he was giving similar notes and questioning these stupid decisions, and they just didn't like it, and that's why they fired them.
It's like, well, I'm sorry, it's just not the vision that we were planning on. It's not our vision particularly. Yeah. They got him fired.
And it's like, is it because of that? Was he putting his foot down saying, this is not Tolkien, this is not Middle Earth, this is going to be confusing, you're conflating too many things? Is that the reason why they got him fired? Maybe.
Someday we'll find out.
Maybe. Then the show just gets really crazy, because then like we have this one scene. What? Yeah. Go on.
Theo. Remember Theo?
Oh yeah, we'll get to Theo. We'll get to Theo. So you have one scene with Bronwyn, who. Well, no, I won't say what I was going to say. Yeah, Bronwyn, who is the human lady who clearly has eyes for and what's his name? Arondir. And the romance is dull. The romance is as sizzling as a cold hob. Right? Yeah. Like there's no real like spark between them, but they're trying to force it. And all we get with them is one scene in which she gives her she gives him some like some seeds or something.
Oh yeah.
And then they leave. And then after they leave, Arondir is told that the war is over. The days of war are over. All the elves are leaving this land, right? That's what he's told. And that they are to leave immediately. So he leaves Bronwyn from this little moment, gets told this.
We've heard this before.
And then he goes right back to Bronwyn, and she has already heard that the elves are leaving. It's like the same day. And like, how in the heck would she have known? The elves just left. Him and the other elf just left. They're the only two elves there. But she says, "Oh, I heard that you're leaving." And there's this kind of moment where they're like talking and trying to flirt badly. And then that's when her son comes into the picture with his stupid haircut, saying that some guy's out front with a cow that oozes out black goop from its...
the black goop coming out of the udder. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's what's... And then what's crazy is it sends Arondir and Bronwyn on some quest to some other local town that this cow was apparently from, and where it was potentially poisoned. And she's just like, he's like, I'm gonna go. Arondir's like, I'm gonna go find out. And she's like, I'm coming with you. It's a day's journey.
Dude, there's some crazy teleportation going on. Like, there's some hilarious like shrinking of the geography in this.
Yes, it's a day's journey, and they smash cut to them, on this journey.
Holding hands.
Yeah, none of that. There's no romance. There's nothing. They literally smash cut to them. Eventually, not smash cut to them, but like the next time we see them, is when they are at the next location, and they don't have any provisions, they don't have anything on them. They're just wearing their like normal clothes. She's just wearing her normal robes. Like she doesn't have like a backpack, anything. There's nothing to indicate that they had like a tent or anything. So I'm like you think about when in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo and Sam set off on their journeys, like they had stuff with them. These people are setting off and taking nothing with them. And I'm like, you're going on a day's journey. You're not bringing food. You're not bringing water. You don't have anything with you. Like, what?
I don't. These little tiny details really add up, though.
They do. No, they really do, because it doesn't make sense, because it's stupid.
Wait,
it's lazy.
Arondir and Theo and his mother's home location is in Khand. I've noticed from the way the episode showed its version as Middle Earth. What? They're from Khand? That's so far away.
Oh, are they? Yeah.
So damn far. I can't. No, it's not true. It can't be. The Southlands? Like, are you sure?
I don't know. We have to look.
I give up. Khand is like on the east,
right.
Close to where Mordor is.
Right.
Sort of a little bit farther away. It's not. Yeah. I think, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know. I would have to look at the map, because I don't know off the top of my head.
Right.
But I think what's so annoying about this is like when we're watching these two characters, like there's no again, go back to the thing is, if there's no moment for anyone to breathe. Like there's no attempt to like bud the romance. It's just like you just sort of have to accept that they have some twinkling in their eyes for each other, but then something gets in the way and then they're off on a mission. But like them walking and journeying together for a day is perfect opportunity to explore this like budding romance, and they do nothing with it.
It's amazing. We're on like what's the next characters? I can't wait to know. Look, I just can't wait.
Well, yes. So yeah, because we are not done being introduced to characters. So what happens next? So then there's this moment where Theo, which is her son, Bronwyn's son, we're getting to learn a little bit more about him, which is, he has a bad accent. He finds a sword. He goes with some kid to some barn and finds a sword that's like Sauron's sword.
Wasn't that like the Morgoth's sword? I don't know. I forgot.
I don't know what it is. It's someone's sword. It's somebody's sword that's evil and has the mark of Sauron on it. And like,
yeah,
blood makes it grow.
Sure.
Yeah. So he finds that.
So boring.
Yep. Then we're back to Elrond, and he's gonna go work with Celebrimbor, and
it's such a disappointing, like, not just the person that they chose as Celebrimbor, but his age and his outfit, his demeanor. It's just so funny because like I didn't read enough to be like, oh, I know who Celebrimbor is, but from the little cliff notes that I've read of him, he would have been such a great character to be developed. But he's just, he just looks like, what does he look like to you? He looks like, who was that again? Who did you? We made a comparison of some politician guy.
Oh, I can't remember now. Yeah, but I can't remember the name that we said. I can't remember. Dang it. So then once that happened, then the next scene is back to the Harfoots, back to Lenny Henry, and he's reading his book out loud in the middle of the camp, and he's the stars are strange and all this bullshit. And while he's reading this aloud, Nori pops her stupid head up and is like, "What are you talking about? What's his name? Sadok Burl. What do you?" And he gets mad. He gets mad at her and he shouts at her for listening into him. But I'm like, bro, you're standing in the middle of the camp reading your book out loud. So why are you mad at her? You stupid idiot. Like, there's no reason to be mad at her when you are in the middle of the camp reading your book out loud. Like, don't read your prophecies out loud then, bro. In the middle of the camp.
Bruh.
Go somewhere privately. brah. You know what I mean? Like it was so silly. But also the other thing that's silly, also silly about it is what is she doing at his feet?
Sorry?
Well, she pops out. He's standing there. His book is laid out on like a little table thing, and she just pops out from underneath it.
Oh, I think I wasn't paying attention at her.
Yeah, and I'm like, so what are you doing? Like, what are you doing under there, Nori? Like, I don't understand why you were under there. Just happened, like, coincidentally listening to him talk about this stuff from his prophecy book. And it's like this is such a heck of a. And she's like, so what's going on? What's going on? There's not really been any indication that there's a lot going on. You know, he's not really been telling people, and there's not really been a lot of time devoted to his concern.
No, not at all, dude.
But she just needs to shake out some information because she's meant to be the important hobbit. You know, and then and that's when he's like, the skies are strange. Okay.
I mean, out at this point, man. I don't even remember this moment. Did I just go to the bathroom or something? What?
Maybe you did. Maybe you did. I don't remember. But yeah. Next time you gotta pay attention. The other thing that's annoying is every time we move between characters is we're doing this like Indiana Jones map scene. Like do 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 do. And you're like, why? Why? No, there's two more points left for episode 2. But now I'm curious, Biffer, if you're listening, if you're still here, you said you liked the series, you liked the episodes. I genuinely want to know. I genuinely want to know what was it that you liked, because like the thing is, like, I don't care if someone likes the show. Like, I'm not gonna, if someone is digging it, they're digging it. My thing is, as a writer, is I'm going to go through and pick out why something is working and why something isn't working from that point of view. And from my point of view, this is why this show isn't working.
Yeah.
But I legitimately want to know why other people have been interested or not interested, because I can say, when we watched it, it was me, Claire, you, and my sister who's visiting from the States, and we all didn't like it. We were all bored, very bored. But I legit want to know, like,
bored.
Yeah, what is it that's working for people? Because I find that interesting. I legit want to know.
Too, because like I can't, my perception isn't someone else's perception, so it's always interesting to hear.
Yeah. So then we get to
episode 2?
Nope. We're 2 scenes away. Then we get to the Undying Land scene.
Oh, that's at the end of episode 1. Okay. This I like the pause. I like the pause and the swiveling of the chair.
Just like, what was that scene? Utter nonsense.
Well, it's the moment where she makes her choice, which, I mean, she's never changed her choice. No one really forced her to get on there. No one really challenged.
You know what? This is what annoys me about that, is she has spent the entire episode dedicated to hunting Sauron. And then after one little conversation with Elrond, with his stupid little smug face, Smug Ron. He's like, I assure you, I will find Sauron if he's still there. Okay. He's like Mr. Mackey from South Park.
He is.
Sauron's out there. I'll find him. Okay. Don't worry about Galadriel. Okay. You've had a lot of battle out there, haven't you? Yeah. Okay. Maybe you should go to the Undying Lands and have a little bit of a rest. Okay. And it's just like, God, Elrond, you're so boring. Fuck. I mean, frick.
He is quite boring. Yes.
Yes. So she just gives in. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Let's hold on a second.
Like, and then she's on the boat, and then she's going, and then she's, getting, and then this like weird like cultish trance takes over the elves as they're
nonsense. I have no idea what they're
as they're approaching, and these weird birds come out and fly around, and they start singing this song and like holding each other's hands, and one's like, "Take my hand, Galadriel," and you're like, why are they holding hands? Why is this turning into some sort of like cultish moment? Like I always assumed going to the Undying Lands was just they left one side of the world, sailed across the ocean, and docked somewhere else.
That's it. Simple as that, honestly.
Like I never envisioned it as some sort of like spiritual journey to another like realm or plane of existence. And they were making this like it's some sort of like Kong Skull Island moment where you're like gonna go, or like Themyscira, where you need to get through the mist to get to the magical place. And you're just like, why? Like,
oh, we have Wahab saying something interesting.
I kind of like the way they demonstrated the enchanted isles in a cloud of mist like curtains, riding Valinor to the exile from the exiled elves. That I liked, but we're still talking about characters that did nada.
Sure. I guess. I mean, I guess I don't hate the idea, but it's they made it so absurdly spiritual.
Yeah.
And there was one guy who I really is a musician who we follow each other on the Twitters. Big Lord of the Rings fan. Like he really interpreted something interesting out of that scene, and that was sort of like, you know, on a religious aspect, and that was sort of not like almost sort of like not wanting to give in to that particular ideology or sort of way of thinking, and kind of paving your own path by jumping overboard kind of thing. And I like the concept that he's thinking of, but I don't think the show really nailed it because that's not really the point of going to the Undying Lands. Like you want to go back there. Like that is your heaven. Like that's where you're meant to be. And also the other thing is we get a description of it. We get a goddamn description of it. In The Return of the King, when the boat sails away, the thing is, in the films, Gandalf, and I guarantee you, the people on this show have never read the book. They've only seen the films. So what they're thinking of is they're thinking Gandalf said to Pippin in The Return of the King, you know, it goes, you know, you sail, sea of glass.
And beyond.
Yep.
A far green country under a swift.
So you know, and you're just assuming they probably have only watched the film, and then they're only watching the end of The Return of the King when they just sail into the brightness out there, right? The ship just slowly gets into the sun and just disappears, right? And they're probably thinking, oh, let's do something with that. Let's just have it be some big bright light, like some sort of heavenly light. That'll be cool. And it's like, no, Gandalf already told you what's written in the book. Gandalf says the White Shores, sprawling green country. You know, like that's what they're meant to be seeing, not some blinding light with birds flying out of it.
What's it called? You know what I'm talking about.
What?
The cliffs of those famous
Dover?
white cliffs.
Oh, Cliffs of Dover. White Cliffs of Dover. Yeah. And again, you're also thinking, I'm also thinking like, what was I gonna say? Shit, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, no, you're just
It's not for
say
them.
again.
So do all who live to see such times, but it's not for them to decide.
Yeah, no, the whole kind of concept of them just being, oh yeah, that was it. She jumps overboard, the ship disappears, and then she's just left in an empty ocean. So they're actually
she's swimming back. She's swimming back. She's got the
no, hang on, you're missing the point. She's just left in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
They're meant to be docking at the Undying Lands. That's the Undying Lands. They're meant to be there. She should be. Why is it that when she jumps off the ship, the cloud, the light closes in, and then there's just nothing?
It just wraps them in like a pancake and just
but then there's nothing. Then there's nothing there. Like if that's the way in, aren't you just? Oh, isn't that just always there?
It's like, this is what I don't like about this show, is that it changes established things that we logically could find out by watching the movies, but also in the books. This is how it is, and they changed it just for this like moment, which also kind of fails in my opinion. You know what I mean? So it's a lose-lose on both accounts.
Yes.
And it just doesn't make, it's just kind of like unhappy. And also, thank you, Wahab. That vase tricked your eyes. You thought it was the background. That's why I did it. That's why I did it. I want to put something pretty to block just an ugly door. Let's not think about that.
Hideous door. So then the last scene is the meteor.
Meteor Man.
Place your bets, everyone. Place your bets. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be?
I didn't like it. I don't dislike the concept of this. Like if they want to change stuff like that, like fine. I'm okay with the idea.
It depends on what they're going for. Like, what's the angle?
Yes.
What's their initial pitch? Like, what are they doing for this show?
Yes.
And if they want to change things, okay, I can accept this as long as. But I think all of us would probably like something very much akin to Peter Jackson's renditions, where, he and Fran and Philippa actually wrote a story that was pretty much the Tolkien original. Yeah. And they just put so much heart and soul into every aspect and passion into it, and it shows on screen because they had the talent to, and the dexterity and the betting all of their professions on getting it done, and they won big, and I feel like that's such a wonderful testament to always see.
Yeah, because what's so annoying about this meteor moment, like everyone sees it. Everyone, the Elf King sees it. Not Galadriel. Elrond sees it. The Hobbits see it. The Ents see it.
Nyfear sees it.
Everyone sees this stupid meteor.
We saw some Ents.
Yes, everyone sees this thing crash. Right. No one does anything about it. It's all in the second episode. It's completely shrugged off. It's not brought up by anyone.
No one talks about it.
And so you're telling me that the only person who thought the skies were strange is some podunk hobbit
with massive mutton chops. Let me tell you.
The elves have no idea what's going on. They don't think anything's weird about this giant meteor crashing to Earth.
Yeah.
Nothing. And then the other problem that I did have with it is once we get to the scene, the meteor crashed, and for some reason, unexplained reason, Nori and Poppy just happened to be there. It's just pure coincidence. There's not even like there's a crash. The hobbits are like scared. Stay home.
Don't go there.
Yeah, and then they sneak out and do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's perfect. They should have done that, and they don't.
I can't believe it. These little moments, these little storytelling moments that aren't even unique. They're just great for, like, they add some flavor, even if they're not, they're not, there's something common that you've seen in stories before. Even those little moments, if you would insert them, they would give some sort of...
It elevates it.
Yeah, it elevates it and gives you some, like, time. It gives the characters to do something, to see more of their personality.
Yes, exactly. And like do that. That would be fun. But they don't. And they're just suddenly there. And then we get this scene that I'm like, wait a minute. This is like the Terminator meets Smallville. Like, you've got this naked man in the middle of a burning crater, and it's like it's just like you would expect. Like he lands to Earth in the same way that like Clark lands to Earth. But he also was in the center of this crater like Terminator. And you're like, this visually isn't interesting because I've seen all this before.
Yeah, and that's all we got too. It's like we're not really engaged in anything else at the moment. Could be something dangerous, and nobody wants to take action and investigate. Nobody.
No. I mean, so like my overall notes for episode 1 is just that
we're done with episode 1. Come on, let's do this.
I know, right? I don't have as many for episode 2. I think episode 1 hits all the main problems, and episode 2 just continues the problems. But it's just there's no story going on. There's an abundance of character introductions. We don't go beneath the surface of any of them. There's an over-reliance on Lord of the Rings nostalgia. There's rejigged quotes and themes offering nothing new and showing us aspects of this world that they're not showing us they're showing us aspects of this world that we've already seen in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I think Sauron as the big bad is lackluster so far. We already know what happens to him, so all this pathetic mystery about him is completely pointless. We don't learn anything new about the Harfoots, stroke proto hobbits. Like they're just the same thing. You know, and yeah, there's other complaints in terms of other things that I'm not gonna get into. I don't think, but then we
freaking 2. Episode 2. Let's get it. Let's go. Yeah. Episode 2. Let's meet the dwarves.
So then we finally get to episode 2, and then we get the opening credits.
I didn't expect us to talk about that, but okay.
We're talking about it because the opening credits are boring. The opening theme song is boring. And the general music for the show has no personality.
I mean, I kind of like the theme, sort of.
What is the theme? Hum me the theme.
I don't remember. I'm gonna have to. Have to watch it again.
Yeah,
and I'll find out. I'll listen to it on Spotify a few times. Maybe I'll remember.
Yeah.
Well, they're like.
Great theme. We're still with Nori and Poppy and the Meteor Man, and like he grabs her hand and he does this big screaming thing, and it's all confusing, and you just like
you're very engaged. That's what you want to say. You're very engaged in this gripping story, wondering what will happen next.
It's just over the dramatic moments that have no payoff. And that's what bores me. Is that. And it's like, okay, we know he's a wizard. Just stop with the dancing about.
I was gonna say, who's it gonna be?
Well, my assumption is that it's either going to be Gandalf or it's going to be Saruman.
Not Radagast?
No.
No one wants Radagast. He doesn't have marquee value.
No, yeah. No. They're not. I would be more interested if it was Radagast, but it's not going to be. No. If it was, I would be impressed that they actually chose Radagast, but it's not going to be him.
No, it's not, because we saw all the aspects of Gandalf from the movies, and that guy looks like Jim Henson. If anyone wants to bring a picture of Jim Henson up, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. I think the other thing that was annoying to me is I don't know. He wakes up screaming, and he has this like he's lost his mind. He doesn't know who he is. He's very confused, and I'm like, this is like when the Doctor regenerates in Doctor Who. He typically crashes his TARDIS and is confused for a little bit, not really sure who he is or what he is, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually wakes up and comes to. And it's like it's such an overplayed concept of this. Yeah. Like this, and it's like I get it. He's just been born, and that's what they're going to get at. Oh, he's just been born. He's just learning. He's just Frankenstein. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, why does he have to like? You just send him, and he can just boom be who he is. You know.
To me, Wahab says, to me, Galadriel in the show is a reckless character. In the lore, Unfinished Tale, she's a wise and political leader that has depth. I wish YouTube could make us type more than 200 words.
I wish YouTube could make us type more than 200 words. That would be great. But that's a good point. I mean, that's the thing. Like they've completely swapped out what we know of Galadriel from the books and the additional materials, and they've turned her to Xena the Warrior Princess. And I'm just like, why?
Don't ask me.
You know, like. And I think this is what frustrates me about a lot of modern television, a lot of modern books and stuff like that, when they're trying to make interesting female characters. The only way that they know how to do that, or what is typically done, is they are like bullheaded. No one believes them, but they're always right, but they're always awesome. And it's just sort of like, this isn't what makes an interesting like female protagonist, in my opinion. Like,
it doesn't make any protagonist interesting.
No, like I think of like, I don't know if I have her books behind me, but yeah, this is Sarah Pretsky's books. Her V.I. Warsarsky books, Chicago-based Private Eye. Like,
Okay.
she's really cool. She's like the I don't want to reduce it, but it's like the female version of like a Philip Marlowe, but in like a modern context, right?
No idea what you just said.
She's a female, yeah, Maltese Falcon kind of private eye, right? That kind of stuff. But she's cool. She's got agency. She's tough, but she's not indestructible. Like,
Yeah.
she has personality. She has ups and downs. She has emotion. And the emotion that you get from a lot of modern day things when they're trying to make these badass characters and tough people is that they have no emotion. They're always just, like I said, they're always just just, I don't know, just really one dimensional and just really bullheaded and boring. And, their way, it's their way and only their way. And everyone just doesn't listen to me. And it's like, this is so cliche. Like, it's all cliche stuff. And it's like, get out of this mold. Like, do something that's not the same boring stuff that we see all the time. Like, I'm trying to not call her a Mary Sue. But at the end of the day, she's been nothing but a Mary Sue. She's perfect at everything. She kills that snow troll perfectly. She swims across the ocean perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but she swims across the ocean. She's never in any real danger. In the second episode, she meets some people in the ocean and she joins them for a couple of seconds. Then a big sea monster comes and she's in no danger. She's in no danger. They all get eaten alive, and she's just kind of sitting there in the ocean while nothing happens to her.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
What are you saying?
No, I was just gonna say that I just remembered that scene where the people are on a raft and they get racist for a bit.
Yeah. The moment of race. Yeah, a little bit of
And then the sea monster shows up, and then these people just disappear. I don't even remember seeing them getting eaten.
They all get eaten.
Did they
all get eaten?
I didn't see any close-ups. I didn't see any chompies. No.
There's some chompies.
I didn't see that. Why didn't I see that? I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
I was just in my own little world at this point.
I mean, by episode 2, we were like reluctant to even continue with it after the first episode. But yeah, so you're just sort of like, I don't know, like you can do something more with these types of characters and make them a bit more interesting.
Dude, you can do so much more with them. I believe.
It's just so one note. It's very one note, and she's very boring, and I just don't like it. The other thing that was really annoying in episode 2 is when Nori was saying that she feels that she was destined to find the Meteor Man. And I'm like, don't give me this the one bullshit. Like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I was destined to find him, because
Where
it's all about me. What?
They're gonna drop this whole destiny. They're not gonna go back to that.
Oh no, I think they will.
So?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You really think that they're gonna be like, or you are the one who found the
because my ultimate gut reaction is that this is Gandalf, and she's going to be the reason why Gandalf loves hobbits. Like that's what it's probably what it's going to be, and it's going to be super cringe. Wahab says strong characters doesn't mean that they can do anything if they don't struggle, as Luke probably mentioned earlier, and cannot show the audience how they can. Correct. Exactly. Like, the struggle is the hero's journey is the most interesting aspect. Like Luke Skywalker defeating the Death Star isn't interesting if he's just awesome straight away and does it without any problems. It's interesting because, his aunt and uncle are murdered. He's whisked away on this mission to go rescue a princess and take her out of the clutches of the evil Dark Lord. And then he has to fulfill his kind of dream of becoming a pilot and destroying the Death Star, and he becomes important by doing that. But he has plenty of struggles. He has plenty of insecurities along the way. And that's what makes that's why that film is a timeless film. And that's what people relate to it, because they relate to Luke Skywalker's journey. Luke Skywalker could have absolutely been a female character back in the day, and we would be talking about that version of the character today. because no matter what, because the journey was so solid and so clear and so relatable, because it's all of us wanting to go and fulfill some greater destiny. And I think that's part of the problem with Lord of the Rings. Not Lord of the Rings, but Rings of the Power. Is all of these elves are perfect. And there's no struggle. There's no real struggle for any of them.
Yeah.
Like Galadriel gave up her struggle, gave up her battle to avenge her brother. Obviously, she recants at the end and starts swimming back to Middle Earth. But you're just sort of like,
I mean, I knew this was gonna happen. What else was gonna happen?
Yeah, it's just.
Anyway, the dwarves. They go to Moria. I'm telling you, dude. Khazad-dûm is they take a. I was just so baffled by the fact that just Elrond and just Celebrimbor from Wish go to
The Wish version.
Yeah. They take a casual stroll, just two of them. Many miles. Wait, if they're in Lindon?
Yep. They're in some other. They're in. I called it like E-Ragan or E. It's
Region. That's where many rings were made. Magic rings, as you call them. That's where the forging of the rings takes place. It was a happier place where dwarves and elves were doing great together. And I mean that's miles away. You're telling me that they just walk over there, both of them at one point.
Well, yeah, I mean it's another example. It's like when Arindir and Bronwyn do a day's journey without any provisions. They show it on the map. They show them walking on the map, and they're suddenly there, and no horses, no nothing,
no water, food.
He's wearing his same robe that he was wearing up in his tower. Like, you telling me that robe you're wearing is like your everyday go on an excursion robe?
Wahab knows more than I do. Ostinedhil is its capital. See, that's where it is. You guys think that I know a lot about this stuff, but I just did the freaking audiobooks. I didn't. I'm a failure. I'm a sham.
It's all right. But then this gets to the next kind of really big point of why I didn't enjoy the Rings of Power, and it's this scene with this rock splitting competition between Durin and Elrond. And the thing is, it's pointless. It goes on forever. It has no meaning. It has nothing to do with the plot. And therein lies the problem with so much of this show, is there are so many things that are happening that are just there to stop the plot and stop the movement, that it's like, I'm not interested in whatever's happening right now, because the plot has been come to a full stop so that, I don't know, you can split some rocks, so that Galadriel can swim across the ocean, so that, whatever the heck, it's just like, I don't care about any of this stuff. Like, none of this has anything to do with what the overall like point of the show is meant to be.
What is the point of the show?
Well, the point of the show is obviously to find Sauron. And Gandalf obviously plays some role in that, and that's why he's arrived. And we'll see how the hobbits fit into all this bullshit.
Till the Third Age, but whatever. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about it time.
Yeah. So I just, the thing is,
great. I wasn't expecting this kind of show. I was expecting The Hobbit again. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
I think the fight scenes in the two action. Not that this is important, but if you don't have anything else, that's all I can talk about. There are only two fight scenes in these two episodes. There was just the one at the beginning with the troll, and then there was just the one with what's her name? Healer lady. And this orc that shows up.
The Yes. Yes. Yeah. The weirdo orc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the thing is for me, I have other points I could talk about, but I'm so exhausted with this stupid show that I might just go to my overall points.
But what about not Sauron? Oh, sorry. Looks can be deceiving.
Yeah, I mean he's blatantly not who he says he is. Is he Sauron? Is he someone else? I don't know. I don't care. He probably is Sauron in disguise.
I was conflicted about that before the show came out. I was thinking, I mean, that's not a bad idea if you can keep it a secret because no one would have expected it, and I think that's an interesting angle.
But I think they have two people. I think there is someone else who's playing Sauron, and it's this Eminem looking dude.
I thought weren't those like priests or something?
Are they?
That's what I heard.
Okay. I have no idea. I didn't see that, but yeah. The sea monster. Yeah, the sea monster was stupid. The sea monster was dumb. It was just more delaying of the plot. I think what annoyed me is in my overall notes I wrote down that this is like Lord of the Rings for the TikTok generation, and that is you are watching scenes that don't really form a coherent whole, right? There's no straightforward plot, no narrative, no drive. It's just a bunch of different ideas, bunch of different strands that are not fleshed out, and it's just this mishmash, this assemblage of random moments pretending to be a singular story, but you can't really sit there and tell someone what happens in episode 1. To this day, I can tell you exactly what happens in episode 2 of the first season of Smallville. Like, I can tell you what happens in the first episode of Smallville. This show is like 20 some odd years old because it's so clear, so straightforward, but so rich that you're like, oh, I remember that because it was great. This, I'm like, some people mope around. There's some big visuals. Sauron's out there. No one believes Galadriel. A guy falls from the sky. We don't know who he is. And that's the first 2 episodes. That's the first 2 episodes. Nothing beyond that happens. And to me, it's ridiculous that Amazon spent so much money on this show, and this is all they can produce. And I think it's bullshit that they're holding off reviews, blaming review bombers, when it's like, no, what's happened is you've dropped 2 episodes of a show that have been... Your videos have been ratioed on YouTube because the trailers have been terrible. The marketing has been terrible. The show comes out, and the show is not that good. It is very subpar. And people don't like it, and you're afraid of people not liking it. So you're thinking if you hold off reviews for 3 days, they're going to forget and not come back and give you a bad review.
I mean, that's the only logical explanation, right?
Yeah. And I just felt that there were too many scenes, like I said, that drug out the runtime. The sea monster attack was pointless. Had nothing to do with the plot, other than just get Galadriel alone with not Saruman. The rock splitting was completely pointless. To me, it's a lackluster return to Tolkien's world. I'm not interested. I'm not excited. I think I just don't care. And if you compare what happens in the first 2 hours of this show, to the first 2 hours what happens in the Fellowship of the Ring, I mean, my God, what an epic fucking failure. I mean, seriously, what a failure.
All I can do is laugh.
At the end of 2 hours of Lord of the Rings, I think that's once they've left Galadriel's place and they're about to go on that last little bit of the quest.
That's the closing in on the final act of the movie.
Yep. And you think about so much happens, so much emotional swings from happy to sad have happened.
That is too.
Say again.
All the places we've been to, all the environments.
Yeah. We've been to Mordor. We've been to the Shire. We've been to Bree. Gandalf has been to Gondor. Been through the woods. Been through Moria. Been through All these other places.
Rivendell.
Rivendell, you know what I mean? Like so many cool places. Running from the ring race, being on the tower, Frodo being stabbed. Like so much happens in 2 hours of the Fellowship of the Ring, and nothing progressive happens in the first 2 hours of this show. The only things that are happening, the only thing that really progresses, if I'm being honest, is Arendir tracks the orcs.
Cool.
And that's it. But that's it. But that doesn't go anywhere. That's just sort of. And so it's like when we talk about like plot and things that are moving the plot forward, there's not 2 hours worth of plot movement. You know, there's very, very, very little plot movement. And I just think.
I'm just wondering now, throughout Fellowship of the Ring, the movie, how many characters are we introduced to, and how many do we already kind of get and understand who they are compared to Rings of Power, and how many characters we have introduced to that?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
sure.
I've
scared everyone away because we've gone down to like one viewer.
Hey, what can you do? You know,
frighten them all away. But no, seriously, we got two again. We got two back. But no, seriously, I'm just like, yeah. I mean, how many people did we meet? Loads, but few.
Okay, we definitely have 9 characters that we've established. Then there's Elrond, there's 10, and then there's Saruman, and then there's Galadriel, there's Celeborn, I mean, he's not much of a character, but I mean, at least you still kind of remember him, right?
Yeah.
There's old Harry.
Gandalf, for I much desire to speak with him.
Yeah, you have Butterbur, you have old Harry at the gate, you have all the what other characters in the even Proud Feet Bilbo is there. Like, yep. I mean, I'm just trying to think of that and then compare it to the characters that we meet. It'd be interesting doing a list.
It would. And the thing is, like, again, because like with this show, like, you get those people that are all on the boat, and like none of them are important. None of them are important. You get all these extra hobbits. You've got Sadok and like Nori's parents and Sadok's like right hand lady person. And all these people, but none of them are contributing anything. They're not doing anything other than just making quips and saying silly lines. And it's so frustrating. But you're inundated with people. You've got you've got Arindir, you've got Bronwyn, you've got her son, you've got Elrond, you've got Celebrimbor, you've got the king guy, you've got I can't remember them all, but yeah, you just keep getting. You get her brother. You get these elf kids. Who are these elf kids? Why was the elf kid being mean to Galadriel? You've got Halibran, I think his name is, the not Sauron guy. You're just thrown all these people. You've got the trap. You got the hunters, and you're like, wait, are they meant to be important? Oh wait, no, they're not important. I'm meant to be over here. You've got this Gandalf guy. Well, is he important? No, I don't know yet. It's this show is giving you whiplash by the amount of people they're just throwing at you because you don't really know. Again, you've got the guy with Galadriel in the ice cave. It's like, wait, are they meant to be? Is he meant to be important in this show? Oh wait, no, suddenly he's not important in this show. It's like, what is going on? Like, why is this like pulling us back and forth so much? Where Lord of the Rings, there's a reason. There's a reason Tom Bombadil is not in the Fellowship of the Ring. And it's because it's too many characters. It doesn't work, slows the plot down. There's a reason why he's not in it. And I'm fine with that.
I think everyone would be fine with that.
I
love Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, it's great in the book, but yeah, doesn't work for this. It doesn't work for this.
Yellow. Sorry, I mean, some people said that their definitive Tom Bombadil is my voice. So
there you go.
I just have to respect that and just go. No one's ever called him yet because Tom is a master. Something on his feet are faster.
That's the thing is Awab says, all those locations have characters in the movie, and then that's true. Elrond is Rivendell, Galadriel is where she is, and the cave troll is in Khazad-dûm, the Balrog is
down under in Khazad-dûm.
Mines of Moria, deep in Moria. Like there's very vivid people, very vivid characters. It's a really good point because there's very vivid people in these places, and that's why you remember them because they're vivid and make that place feel real, and interesting. Whereas, don't be yawning on screen, Phil. What are you doing? If we weren't on screen, it'd be fine. God, you dork. Anyway, so I think overall, the show just relies so heavily on Lord of the Rings and Hobbit stuff that we've already seen, and I don't need to see it again. I just don't need to see it again. I think the show lacks creativity. I think it demonstrates ignorance and laziness in terms of narrative drive. I don't care that they might have incremental scenes, but this is what I mean by like TikTok generation. I don't care if scene by scene is interesting. That's not enough. Like, you need to be able to step back and see an interesting picture on the canvas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've said this before in one of my other reviews. It's like, I don't care if I'm looking close at this flower or I'm looking close at this vase or I'm looking close at this, ship in a bottle, whatever. Like, up close, fine. I need to be able to pull back and it all needs to make sense.
Okay, that's what you meant. All right.
It can be interesting, intricate, but when pulling back the vase, the ship, the flower, it all needs to make sense.
Kind of I think that's what its story kind of entails. Yes.
And this doesn't do it. So Wump says like 20 from the Fellowship of the Ring. Maybe, what is this? Wump says, so see if they've stuck with the lore. Sauron was in hiding. Not even Galadriel knew that evil is still around. Yep. Well, I think that's the other thing that's really stupid about that opening scene when she's in the ice cave and the elf guy goes,
"Oh yeah,
this place is so dark, not even the sun would want to be here." And I'm like, I mean, that sounds like a perfect place for a Dark Lord to go hiding.
Yeah.
Like, where would you not want to look? Like, where,
you're out of this expedition. Expedition. Get
again, I think in terms of like example, like really bad. This is like example of really bad dialogue. Like, I jotted a few things down, but like at one point, it's when they're in those caves and someone says, Galadriel says, this place is so evil. Our torches give off no warmth.
That was so bad, man.
And you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
I think I laughed at that point.
Yeah.
That was early on enough where I could be like, haha.
And like, again, like, you haven't seen what I've seen. I've seen my share. You have not seen what it's like, why this tit for tat exchange? Like, this is written by like a juvenile, like high schooler. Like, this is not how you write dialogue. This is not how you write a dramatic moment between two friends trying to convince someone about something. Or like when Arindir was like, the past is with us all, whether we like it or not. And you could just like, they sat there and thought that sounded really heady and really interesting. And it's like, no.
Given its importance and close up that we got and the delivery that we got, yeah, they did.
So yeah, that's our discussion on Lord of the Rings. I think if someone were, like I said, if someone were to hand me these scripts, this would have been my comments. I would have
just hand it back and be like, don't waste any money on this yet.
Yeah, I would have. This is easily maybe draft 3 out of 10.
3 out of 20. I don't
know. Because I'm just like, I would be cutting characters, I'd be cutting scenes. You streamline this stuff, because if you got 5 seasons, why push all these people on us? Why push all these characters on us?
That's an interesting. I'm glad you brought it up, because Wahab mentioned, like, do you expect the show will do the same messed up thing in the future? And I'm assuming, Wahab, you meant, will it be this disjointed in the next ones? I don't know, but at this point, it feels really difficult to change course just because if this is your establishment, you're gonna have to. It just feels weird, man. I don't know.
Yes. Thanks, Wahab, for being here.
Thank you so much for being here in this most isolated of podcast episodes, apparently.
Yes. We're normally on a Wednesday night, Wahab.
Yeah.
Make sure, if you're not following, subscribe and like the video. Anyone who's here, do the same. But yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday at the same time, 7:30 GMT, talking about, I don't actually know what we're talking about on Wednesday. I should know.
Shoot the.
Pardon?
We could just talk about whatever.
I think next week is a unknown. I think next week is something. I don't think we've got anything necessarily planned for. So we will. If people want to ask us more questions about rings of poop.
Yeah, we'll get a good title going for the next one, so people will be interested, and then we'll just control it whatever way we want. I'll just talk about my portfolio. I'll be like, here's my portfolio I sent to Cal Arts. Whoop! Look at these drawings. That's what I'm gonna.
Interesting.
Do.
Sorry. There's one more thing. So I just clicked over to Twitter, and a Hollywood Reporter is saying a racist backlash to Rings of Power puts Tolkien legacy in focus. I guess people are trying to pretend that there's racism that is the reason to this.
Why are we listening to those people over there and their racist thoughts?
Yeah, and I guess because someone else said that on Twitter, like, oh, saying this show is going to be like, Star Wars and the sequel trilogy, and people are just angry because there's people of color and women in prominent roles, and it's like, there's nothing to do with that. Like, all of my problems with this show are purely down to bad writing, bad structure, unfocused stuff, and there's gonna be people out there who are going to use that kind of stuff, and this is why what I said earlier. It's like, actually, it's going to be fringe jackasses who are going to like,
why do we
that stuff? Yeah. And it's going to be trash rag entertainment news, like the Hollywood Reporter, who is going to kick up fuss and pretend like this is a problem, pretend like it's bigger than what it really is, when it's like, actually, you have this tiny minority of shits who are saying awful things, but
one does on
this show. Yeah, but also this show is bad, and this show needs a lot of work, and this show was hella not ready to be released. This was not a film ready script. This was not a film ready story. I am worried as to what will come next.
Because what does this mean for like other shows like it? Because like that's the sad thing about when something this big possibly fails. What I really hate is the higher ups always going, well, now we know fantasy doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Because I mean, this guy Ira Burr, who did a lot of writing for Deep Space Nine, he's like, Rings of Power may have a lot of problems, but I don't believe its diversity and casting is one of them. And it's like, absolutely. I totally agree with that. The casting is not the problem. The diversity of casting is not the problem. The problem is bad acting, bad script,
horrendous pacing,
bad pacing, terrible editing, very, very wonky editing at times. You don't know what's happening from one moment to the next. Why we're moving from one place. Why are we moving from the hobbits to Elrond, or the hobbits to whatever? Why? Yeah, interesting show. Interesting show that I think is ultimately going to be a disaster. I don't see this succeeding. I might be wrong. I mean, enough people might watch it to make it a success, whatever success means, as in it won't get canceled. But like, I don't see this show adding to Lord of the Rings I don't see this people watching Lord of the Rings and also watching the Rings of Power.
This is no. I believe that at the end of it all, when this is all said and done, and it's a bit away in the distance in the past, it's gonna be like Rankin Bass, Return of the King, or Rings of Power.
Yep. Yeah. Yay. So what should we talk about on Wednesday?
I don't know. Talk about I'm always up for talking about crafting stories. We can talk about the hero's journey. We can talk about Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Do that.
We could talk about projects that aren't very big or whatever that we might be thinking about. We can talk about maybe just what happened to you in Edinburgh.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. Yes.
Or we could talk about, I don't know, I could just bring up some topics, man, but like there we go.
We'll have a bit of a free-for-all. We'll have a free-for-all next week. Yeah, that sounds good. Hero's Journey and talking about story and stuff actually doesn't sound like that bad of an idea.
What a dud this was.
The show, you mean, or our show?
No, the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
Oh my, yeah, no, it's true. It's. I mean, as we said when we were watching it, we both finished it. Well, we all finished it, and we were like, "That was boring." I was bored.
Yeah.
There's no memorable characters. I mean, even The Hobbit has memorable characters.
Yeah, you remember Balin, Santa Claus. It's great.
You do.
Oh, and Thorin, he's like, I'm the king of the mountain. Ugh.
We joke around, but like we do. Like we remember I can't remember his name, but Legolas's dad, like he was creepy and mean. Like I remember him. Obviously you remember the Gollum scene. Bilbo was cool. Bilbo was fine, I guess. I remember some of the dwarves. I'm bad with their names, but I can picture their faces. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that dwarf with the twirled out hat. James Nesbitt played him. Thorn, I remember Thorn. He was cool. I remember the old dwarf. He was fine. He was cool. I remember him. I remember the trolls.
You remember the bad guy too.
You remember the white orc? You do. He's pretty stupid. Don't really like it that much, but you remember him. I remember it.
Looks like a beluga whale.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. You remember Stephen Fry's character? You met the Bard or whatever his name is. You remember things. There's things that you remember. Whereas this, I'm like,
I remember the dinner scene with the dwarves.
Mm-hmm. Blunt the knives, smash the plates, or whatever they say. Or that song is.
I'm at Rings of Power.
Oh wait, what? Oh right.
I don't even remember that. Yeah.
No. Yeah, no. It's shocking. Like I said, we can maybe in a few weeks' time come back and discuss the next 3 or 4 episodes when.
Yeah, we'll have a guest. We'll have probably more energy with that and more context sometime in the future.
Yes, but there we go. That's our Lord of the Rings rant. Was it a triumph or was it a disaster? Was the question, and the answer is it was a bit of a disaster.
A bit of a disaster.
Bit of a disaster. Absolutely. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. And we will see you next week, Wednesday, the 7th of September at 7:30 p.m. on the Never Show.
That's right. Goodbye,
everybody. Goodbye. Make sure you like the video and subscribe.
Yeah, like the video.
Like and subscribe, you sons of goodness. I'm trying to not curse so much. Okay, bye. Bye.